me, I overthink a lot, and it's about, man, like, my daughter's gonna be out there one day living life and out in the real world. I want to make sure she's as prepared as I've prepared my son, right? If a woman or a man tries to do something, I want to make sure that she has the strength and understanding that she will do everything possible that she can do to protect herself.
I was telling Larry this last week when I had a shop on River Street, and my daughter was going on daycare, whatever, and I got a phone call and she fell off the swing. I stopped my cut. I stopped. And I went down, we in Fitchburg, went to Leominster, and I raised hell because it was just a protection. Anything happened to my daughter, I'm going berserk. Right. She was 4 years old. She broke around one of the swings, and I blamed it on everybody but my daughter. Weren't you supposed to be watching her? There's 4 of you out here, and I just went. So the protection for my daughter was, all my kids are just outlandishly crazy. But I'd have to be honest, if it was my son and they said he fell down, is he okay? Do I need to come to the school?
Did he do it?
I don't know, but I'm still going to the school regardless.
Yeah.
But as far as, like I was saying earlier, as a dad with a son, might want to, protect him in a way to say, hey, you know what? Yeah, you're a little boy, but you're gonna be a man. Come on, let's go.
Yeah.
We're still gonna go rush because our kids are injured, regardless.
Right. Do you think it makes a difference from the first child, and the second, third?
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of Noah.
And
I think of Noah, and I'm like, man, I would destroy the world to save him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That feeling, not to cut you off, but that feeling will proceed through all your kids. I have 6.
Yeah.
Well, I remember when I wouldn't touch my daughter until I came home and washed my hands completely.
Yeah.
Now that I'm on, what I'm saying, 4, came to 5. Now my 5th one, I'm like, I just walk in, do like this. Come see Dad.
Right.
It just changes.
As a parent, you start realizing everything you did on the first.
Right. You know what already works and what doesn't. But I don't know. I just feel like this connection I have with Noah, man, is just like it's so deep, and it's like when I think of protection, I think I would break down mountains.
Yeah. So how does the provider, how do we go from protector to provider? You know what I'm saying? And what's the struggles with you guys, how you guys think about being a provider for your family?
I'll tell you what my struggles is too much time at work.
I think we talked about that before too. So how do we balance that?
Yeah.
There ain't no balance.
Well,
it's tough.
It's got to get done.
Yeah.
I would say the thing that, because I want to say probably we all think of as providing as the normal providing. Go to work, make money, pay bills, make sure they eat. That's the providing. But probably the provider that our kids probably wanted to see is, to Larry's point, is being too much at work and all the work that you do, and even myself, where we get so into whatever it is we're doing, thinking we're providing, but we're neglecting them by not providing them with us our time.
My wife tells me all the time. She says to me, she's like, you can have all the excuses you want and say that you're working X, Y, and Z, you're doing it for us, but I just want you home.
Yeah.
The kids just want you home.
Yeah. So do this. Do this.
I know what you're gonna
Don't
say.
go to work for a whole month and stay home.
Let's see if they want you
Yeah,
home.
and see how that happens.
So I always struggle with this because I don't know where the balance is. Now again, maybe I take it over the top because I'm always doing something, but I justify it in my head because I'm doing it for them. I always tell my wife and my kids, it wasn't for y'all, I'll be okay in a 1-bedroom apartment.
Yep, same.
Watching TV.
But maybe they'll be okay with that.
Can I spread light on this?
I don't think so.
This is something I went through earlier on. When Noah was I became a single parent when Noah was about 2 years old. He just turned 2. So for me, balancing work and having my son on the days I had him, I really had to figure out how to balance that. What I've learned in my process is that there's no such thing as balance.
Yeah.
There's counterbalance. And what I mean by that is, we're both in the same industry, and selling houses, that industry is very time demanding. But what I've learned in my process is that it's not the amount of time you have with them, it's making the best of the time you have with them. So there have been times where Noah was down at the park, with his mom, and I'm out of work and I stop by the park, and I might be there for 5-10 minutes just because I want to see him and hang out with him, but I make the best of that 10 minutes. Another big part of that too is being present, right? Coming home from a long day, you're tired. I have an 8-year-old. He has tons of energy. I don't know where he finds it, but it's finding energy. Like after work yesterday, picked him up. We went to the park for a whole hour. I'm running around with him, but man, I'm tired. You know what I mean? But I knew that hour I dedicated presence and time to him, he loved it, right? And I always like to ask him, what was your favorite part of the day? And it was like playing with you at the park, right? It's that time.
It's so tough because, again, the protector role, the provider, now, because we work what we do, how we work, and now you gotta go home and be a teacher.
Yeah.
How do you balance that? Like, how do you balance, like, with all the struggles that we mentioned before, how do you still go home and be a teacher?
The first thing that pops in mind is leadership. Our leadership qualities as a man, of who we are today, what has built us here today, those will show up at home, right? Because our kids are a reflection of who we are, right? And the qualities and values we hold to ourselves. So when I think of that, I think of, I don't necessarily think of it as like, all right, gotta go home and be a teacher and do this and do that. It's going home, focusing on just the core things that are important to me, right? Quality time, taking the time to, see how their day was and if there's any feedback or, ways that you can provide value to them in some certain way. You know what I mean? So I think as a dad, we're always teaching.
Yeah.
This is going to sound funny, but it's reality. And it hit me because my wife and I we were talking about it. One day one of my kids dropped something on the floor, and they were like, "Don't worry, Mom will just pick it up."
Oh hell no!
Whoa. And my wife was like, after him at night, she's like, "Did you hear what he just said?" I'm like, "No, I wasn't really. He just said you can leave it because Mom will pick it up." Like, what are we teaching him?
Did she pick it up?
I think she did pick it up.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. But then I blame myself.
Yeah.
Like, am I doing that? Like, because they're learning it from somewhere.
Yeah.
So I go back to myself. I blame myself. But again, in my mind, I'm like, well, honey, say again.
He was like this playing video. Hey, Dante, don't worry, Mom's gonna pick that up. Don't worry about that. Let me show you something right here.
But in my head, I'm like the protector, the provider. I'm thinking like externally outside the house. I'm not thinking about these things. I guess because my head is so wrapped up in these other things because the other roles that we have to fulfill, where I'm not really thinking about that.
It kind of like Thomas brought a great point with what he was just saying, and it kind of ties in with what you're saying. With all of these points that we have, these 7 roles that we play, like how Thomas said, we don't think about it. We don't go home and say, yeah, all right, I'm gonna be the teacher today. You know what I'm saying? I'm a mentor. I'm gonna be your friend today. Don't ask me about nothing else because I'm your friend today. Nah, it just like it said. It just
organic good flows.
Boom. It's just there. It's just.
But I think a big part of that too is self-awareness, because also recognize that our kids are always watching us and learning from us, right? Here's the reality. I have to say to myself a million times every single day, right? You could always make more money. Always. You could always pick up more hours. You could always find different ways to make money. You could always do that. But you'll never get the time back with your kids. I went to an event a couple weeks ago, it was a realtor event, and I met this old guy, 65 years old, having a good conversation with great energy. He's like, I have successful businesses, I live down in Miami, I sell $1 million homes, it's all great. If I could have done something differently, more time with my kids. And
we all say that. We all say that, and I absolutely, because as much as I'm all about father experience, dad, all about that. Like I still realize I have to provide.
That's what I was just saying.
I still have to, and it may not be, to the level that I think I have to do it at, but we still have to provide. So and that's the balance, man.
But how you're defining provide could be much different than how we defined providing, right? Because your mindset of provide might be, well, I need to work 12 hours a day, I need to make money so the bills are paid and home got food and all that other stuff, right? And what in learning from all these different people and their experiences, you know, when he said, you know, I would love to spend more time with my kids if I can go back, that's where that counterbalance comes in, right? It's coming home tired AF, and you know your young daughter or son comes up to you and wants a hug. It's being in that moment for that 5 seconds, giving them a big hug, and like those moments really impact and make a difference, right? We can talk 5 seconds, 10 minutes, 20, like those, and I'm an example of that. Because there have been times where I'm only home for an hour and I gotta leave again when Noah's staying home. But for that hour or that 30 minutes of that hour, I'm in the room with him, hand over the shoulder. Hey man, how you doing? How you feeling? Oh, you wanna play real quick? Quick game of Uno? Cool. I know these are things I know that I can engage fully and be fully present with him because I know those are the things that are really gonna stick with him. So in this idea of balance, I don't really think there's any real reality of balance, but it's counterbalance. It's not the time, it's not having all this time to put to your kids, it's the time you have and making the best of what that is. If it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, because it's how they feel is what they're gonna remember.
Yeah, you gotta focus a little bit.
I know for myself, I know like to a little bit of everyone's point, you know, as far as working too much or not working too much, because I've been there where I literally just would come home from work and open a laptop and work some more. But I no longer have to do that anymore. So now, like, the wonderful thing is when I come home from work now, I literally come home from work and work is done. It's at home. I might deal with a couple messages, but I'm in the same line of work, but it's slightly different than what I'm used to, which was a 24-hour a day type of business is what I was used to, where now we operate from 7 to 7, more or less, and everything. So it's a beautiful thing. But one of the things I do to balance my time or whatever it is because sometimes my kids are a little older. Like I don't have, it's 7 or 8 years old, and everything. So that requires a little bit more attention. My youngest is 14 years old. My oldest is 24 years old. And one of the things that I try to do now, and at the same time, I'm also single now, so you know I want to have a social life as well. So I just try to make myself available when they're around. So if they need rides or whatever it is, because they're at an age where they want to do their own thing. And then sometimes I just try to I engage them to, hey, let's watch a movie because I need my time with them. But I let them do their own thing, but I try to be home and be available for them. And then if I do, for example, want to go out, I go out. It's like past 10 p.m. I already say goodnight to my kids, they're ready for bed or something, so therefore my availability to them isn't really interrupted if I go out at that time and everything. So.
Yeah, I think for me it's also tough as well because, we had some loss in our family recently with my mother-in-law passing away, and then before my mother-in-law was my aunt, before my aunt it was my grandmother, so we had like a lot of like death in a row. And my wife and I were talking about this, we always talk about this, like, you need to somehow, just me, you need to figure out how to balance this, because like.
What does she mean by this, not to interrupt, when you say this?
Like, schedule-wise,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, our schedule is crazy. Like, if people only knew the schedule, like, it's crazy, you know what I'm saying? And I'm trying to figure out a way to balance that, you know what I'm saying? And still, at the same time, be happy, be there, and so forth.
Here's a thought you can plant in your mind that kind of lit a fire up for me, which was, would I be willing to lose everything I have to continue to work and gain all the business that I ever wanted, right? Because at the end of the day, what are we working for?
Yeah.
For our kids, for our wife, for our home. So the way I thought was, man, well, yeah, I could work 12 hours a week and be out that late and come home, just head to bed. And that's something I was actually used to growing up, which was just home. There's really no engagement, go in the other room and play. But would I be willing to lose everything I have based on the time I'm dedicating toward work or whatever it is that's not involving family? Because at the end of the day, we're doing it for them. And we can either make the excuse of not being involved, or we can find the time.
I think we'll always find the time, because I always find the time. I always find it, but I think something you said recently, quality over quantity. So quantity is always going to be there, but the quality of it is where I need to balance it a little bit more.
And that's still tough, because even it's like life, right? Like life happens, and there are some times where you come home and you don't interact with the kids, and at the end of the day you think back and it's like, oh man, I could have done that better, right? Like I could have had a better day. But I think what's worked for me is just the ongoing thought of, all right, God willing, tomorrow's another day, right? And I even tell my kids that.
Reset, reset.
Yeah, so it's like, you do have 365 chances to make a first impression, right? Like you do get opportunities, and it's like my wife has a hard time of, and I know a lot of people do, a lot of parents do. It's like after everything is settled, you need like your time, right? To just chill, relax, unwind, and I get that. I am, and that affects like sleep, which affects mood, which could affect the next day in that interaction, right? So it could be a cycle. Periodically, I have the ability to just say, you know what, I'm gonna get more than 6 hours of sleep tonight, so I'm gonna go to bed early.
Wish I could do that.
Well, right. Like I know that's afforded, but I think ultimately it boils down to like, there is no such thing as balance. I agree. And I've come to the terms where it's like something I've got to sacrifice. We all have to sacrifice something, and you got to be okay with it. Because if you're not okay with it, then you're always going to feel like you're in an uphill battle, right? You got to be okay with being okay sometimes. And I think there's good things about striving for excellence and perfection and all those things, but there's also, the other side of that is it's okay to be okay, right? And like, take the small wins. Easier said than done. Stop focusing on what you need to do and start understanding and be happy for what you did, right? And I think that has helped me sort of overwhelmingly be in a better process to be a better dad, right? Knowing today that, nope, I already know I'm not gonna see my kids today. Like today, literally today. I dropped my kids off at 7 o'clock, and I knew that I wasn't gonna see them until tomorrow. I don't like that, but I'm happy to be here. I had work, I like all these things, so it's like, yep, I'll see you tomorrow, right? And I'm just okay with it.
Yeah, that's where we're all different, and I think that's what provides so much value here is the fact that everyone has their own approach, and no one's wrong or right, because we all have different situations. I don't know what your work situation looks like. Yours.
He works 26 hours a day.
Yeah. Literally, he finds 2 hours to work.
He got 26
So,
hours.
I mean, I can only speak for myself what I've been able to do, but I love having this conversation specifically because this was my uphill battle. For me, I said to myself, I can't live with myself if when I'm 50 and my relationship with my son is not on good pace because he feels like I didn't give him the bond or attention that he needed growing up, And part of what you were saying, which was giving the small wins, because I beat myself up. This is my first kid, so I used to beat myself up a lot. Where it's like, man, I only had 20 minutes to hang out with him, and I didn't really pay attention to him, and and all this other stuff. But being present and recognizing, well, I was with him for 25 minutes, and we laughed. We had a good time.
Because within that, one of the other roles is mentor. How do you guys mentor your child?
Well, again, I think that's a lot like a teacher as well.
I'm waiting for Junior to pop off with
Yeah,
something.
yes.
It's coming.
It just happens organically because,
Jackie, come in a little bit.
there is a difference between a teacher and a mentor, and but I would say that stuff, to me, it just happens organically. My character and how I act and conduct myself will also grooms my kids. My kids know sometimes I have a temper. 90% of the time I'm cool, calm, and collected. And so I think a lot of that goes into mentoring and them seeing that and them learning and everything and them seeing, well, this is how my dad acted. how my dad reacted, or this is what I've seen in life. And then in some cases it is, you know, we're having conversations about life situation. Hey, if this happens, make sure you're going to do this, make sure you do that. And you know, I may have mentioned this before. I bought all my daughters mace. My sons don't want mace. That's all right.
They got hands.
You know, they build a little different. But I bought all my daughters mace, and I told them, don't be afraid to use the mace. We'll deal with whatever happens afterwards, or whatever. You know, so my kids are minors. Or one of them's minor. The rest of them are adults. One of them's a minor, and you know. That's all right. Like I said, one of my kids is a minor, and I gave her mace. And if anything, I'm not going to be mad if she protects herself with some mace. I'm not going to be mad at all.
Just want to put a disclaimer. I mean, nothing you said.
We can disclaim that all we want, you know. But
Get out of my jurisdiction.
The reality, yeah, this is Dad's word. They don't think it's Dad's word. But the reality is, you know, no. But the reality, absolutely. The reality is, I'd be more angry if my daughter said, "Well, I'm only 17. Let me not use this mace." And you know, you know, then if she uses the mace, protect herself if she's safe. Thank God you had your mace. So thank God you're safe. You know, I'm not gonna be like, "You used your mace? Why would you do that? You know you're not supposed." No.
Yeah.
Use that mace if you need to use that mace. Pick up a rock. Pick up a bottle. Listen, make sure you're safe.
One of my things, this is what I struggle with, is that like, at the end of the day, our kids, for the most part, are going to follow our footsteps.
Yes.
But it's not so much of what we say, it's what they see.
Mm-hmm.
So, what we do. So I know in my household, you know, it's either dad's working, dad's teaching, dad is taking Dante here, taking Sian there, or dad's on the couch. Dad used to be in the kitchen cooking, but that got old real quick. So now it's dad's on the couch. Like, my son said something to me a long time ago. He was like, "Dad, every time I come home, like, when you're home, you're on the couch." Dad's tired. You don't see that dad worked last night. You don't see dad went to go teach during the daytime. All you know is when you come home from school, dad's on the couch. So like, I'm trying to strike that
The
balance.
kids don't care.
They don't care.
They don't.
They don't.
Because what's important to them is the time they have with their mom or their dad. Because at the end of the day, that's what's gonna matter.
That's
right?
their world when you
We're-
when they enter it. Like,
We're all who we are today based on our example of what we grew up. Now, I'm not saying that we're exactly that, because I know we go down our own ways and we self-teach ourselves certain different ways, but ultimately, who we are as a character, and how we carry ourselves, and how we communicate, and how we love our partner, and how we do all these different things, is ultimately how our kids are going to use, is the foundation of how they're going to know how to communicate, to love, to protect, to teach, to do all these things. So, I mean, I feel you, man. There are times where I told Noah sometimes, I'm like, you know what, I don't want to play today. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm tired. I don't have the energy. I love you. But we can definitely play next time. You know, planting that seed like, hey, not now, but next time. Because, you know, hey, I'm not, you know, like I said, hey, I'm not going to see you today. But sometimes it's like that. But what's interesting is what your kid said to you was what I always came home to, right? I had my brother and sister's dad was in the house for some time, and that's all it was. Picked us up, walked in the door, couch, knockout, 5 minutes. You know what I mean? There was no engagement, no relationship building. So that's what I knew him for. Oh, you just come, and I remember calling him out one time when I was young. I was like, "Why do you always come and you just knock out in 5 minutes?" And you know, we laughed about it. But that's what we remember. You know what I mean?
My youngest son came over one day. Dion's like gonna be 2 in December, but like he came over one day. Like I got home from work, sat on the couch. Came over, he brought me the remote. And I'm like, how does he like? Come on, he's too young to know that.
Yeah.
You know, but also it's what he's seeing.
He's observing.
You know, so I don't know, but that's not a good look. That's not a good look.
And we're not perfect, man. Like, you're doing your best. We're all doing our best. And that's why we're here, because sometimes we can bounce ideas off of each other and just try different things when we go home. All right, well, before I hit the couch, let me spend, a couple minutes with everyone, show them my love and attention, and give them that feeling of love, and then let me go hop on the couch. You know what I mean?
Parenting has changed. It's changed tremendously. We didn't have these things in between when my parents were raising me. We had certain things that we can and cannot do. Now it's, what bothers me is parents try to be the friend instead.
Yeah, that's the next role. That's not.
Yeah, but how would you define that, though?
Because before in the day, then we didn't have too much to get enthused about. You go outside and play in the lights until the lights went out or whatever. Today, there's so many different things, entities in between. As us being a mentor, it's hard to when our kids at 7, 8, 9 years old, their mentor is their phone or their tablet.
Yeah, but then that goes back to you as a parent. Why does your 8-year-old have a phone?
Right, but as a parent and mentoring your kid, how do you tell your son or daughter, you need to come to me as a mentor other than your tablet? Guess what? Your son or daughter is going to get mad at you because you're going to take that away. And I know it's tough, but back in the day we didn't have a tablet. It's my dad or my brothers, my sister mentored me. And my dad did, and my mother did. We didn't have these interruptions in between. And that's why I say it's harder now to be a parent to a child because of all the inequalities we have. We can't cut a kid's hair without turning on the TV or bringing in a person.
It all comes down to parents.
Right.
That's why we're here.
Exactly. And so that's why I'm saying it's harder now to be a parent, because as soon as the kids can open up their eyes and they see something other than maybe listening to their parent, they might run the other way. That's why I think it's very important that we stay close to our kids. My 2 daughters, they think, like I said, I'll say it again and again. My 2 daughters, they literally worship the ground I walk on. Not because I provided them with financial stability, because like you said, which was so important, just being there for them. Just being there for my girls, man, and my son. It was just incredibly important actually there. So that is, but I think it's harder now.
Yeah.
Really do. It's hard. It's tough.
It's tough because I have a habit of telling my son, I just go back to my son, I'm not your friend.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm dad.
Yeah. I use
So,
that- I use that phrase before.
this, hey bro, yo bro, no,
Don't bro me.
no. And it's not what, it's yes inside the household, Like I'm notorious for saying that, but I don't say it as much with my girls. Because I don't really think they try that as much versus my son trying it.
Because you know what the difference is, right?
Maybe my perception is
No,
different, I don't
No,
know.
I don't think the
You protect
perception is
them
different.
differently.
Yeah, you do protect them differently, but what I'm saying is your son is trying to probably emulate that man. And what he's got to understand that is in your household, that's you. He'll be able to get to that at some point, but he's trying to be the tough guy. What? Thinking it's cool, but at the end of the day, you're trying to teach him manners.
Yeah.
And everything, and you'll still do that.
This whole idea about, not being their kid's friend, I've always had some controversy over it. Now, I understand, when I think of not being your kid's friend, I think of boundaries.
Before you finish.
Hey, Larry, don't jump in.
Just let me add one thing. and then
Wait,
you
wait,
go.
because I know you're going to go off.
No, I'm just gonna say one thing. Friends come and go.
Yeah.
There you continue.
Okay, friends come and go. All right.
Okay.
All right. So, my perspective is a little different, right? Because I know that I have to, at times, and I've done this with Noah since he was young, I always get on his level, right? So, for an example, physically, I'll get on his level. When I'm having a conversation and he's only about 2 feet tall, I get down to his level and speak to him, right? When we're communicating, I'm taking the time to listen to him, right? So, and yeah, when I see Noah, hey, what's up? Yep, I do give him handshake. Because that's the
I
type
do that.
But
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the type of comfortability I want my son to have with me, because he knows I can always trust dad. Now when we come to the whole friendship thing, because some of the things I might say or do with Noah might be categorized from some of you guys as, treating him like a friend. But Noah knows our boundaries, right? When Noah says something, or he might, or he says the what, I'm like, and I call him sir. when he knows when I'm serious, I call him sir.
Yeah.
I say, sir. I don't think so. We're not having that conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're gonna have an attitude and be disrespectful, that's not gonna happen. You know what I mean?
So some people look at the friend part of it. Like, I want my son and my daughters. I want my kids to come to me. Like, if there's something going, I want my son and my daughter to come to me like, hey, Dad, listen, there's this girl at school that I like, and I wanna say hi to her. I wanna talk to her. Then I also want my daughter to come to me. Well, she didn't come to me and say, Dad, I have somebody that I like. I want that to happen.
But I don't
So
think
is that a
that's
friend level?
I don't think that's a friend.
Yeah, that's like
because
confidence.
that's more like they're coming to you with that as like a dad. I think when I think of
Friend is like,
I've
you
used
can't
that-
tell them no.
Yeah, I've used
Yeah,
that
yeah,
phrase.
yeah.
I've used that phrase with my kids. I'm not your friend. I'm your dad. Because I've said things to them, and the way they react to me, as if I'm one of their friends. Or it's like, no. I wasn't at this point. I'm not asking. Like, this is,
Yeah.
my daughter got upset with me once because I told her to put her shirt up. She didn't like how I said it, and I didn't say it to be liked. I said it because it needed to be respected and everything. And I am not your friend. But what I said, you don't have to like it. It's fine for you not to like it, but you need to respect it. And I explained that to her and everything, because I wasn't trying to be friendly about it and everything. You get that at school or when whomever comes over and everything. So to me, it's like, I feel that when parents are just too friendly with their kids, to Thomas's point, there is no boundaries.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
that boundary thing, those boundaries are very blurred when parents are too friendly with their kids and everything. So it's like
But who says we have to tell our kids that they're our friends? That's in our own mind now.
Oh, my
That's
kids are my friends.
That's how
My
we raise
kids-
our kids, and because we
my kids
answer to
are my
others.
friends.
Others say that parents can't be their friends, but if I'm talking to my daughters or my son, friends never leave my mouth.
Yeah, no.
They don't. It's just, if we coincide and say, hey, listen, Noah's my friend. Noah doesn't have to know that he's my friend.
Right.
He still knows he's my son.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there's a fine difference, what I think define as friendship as parents and kids, because I've seen it. Like I said, I'm 52, where I've seen a 16-year-old kid light up a joint with his mother, father. That's too friendly.
There's no boundaries
That's bad
there.
parenting
Yeah.
also. So that's what I mean as far as
Yeah.
being friends. And my apologies if you think I took anything wrong from that, but as far as Noah, 8 years old,
Yeah.
there's no reason why he needs to know that maybe somewhere down the line we're going to be friends.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm your dad.
Right.
Okay? Now, if you want to tell your friends, oh man, I love my dad like he's my friend. You're doing your job.
Yeah, and that, like, for me, the first thing I thought of, I was like, man, Noah's gonna be a teenager one day. I'm young enough to know, like, I was just a teenager, like, right around the corner. You know what I mean? Like, I want to make sure he has a safe space to come to me when he's dealing with a bully at school, or he got in a fight, or he likes a girl, things like that. And that's what I meant by getting to their level, where it's like, have a conversation. Hey, how was your day? Like, I remember Noah asked me, like, last year, he was like, do you dream about girls? And it threw me off. I was like, whoa. Yeah. He was like, do you dream about girls? And I was like, okay, all right, it'd be cool. I said, yeah, like sometimes. It's like, oh, okay. And I was like, oh, do you? It's like, oh, no. So I didn't elaborate more in deep that, but I didn't come off like, what are you talking about girls, right? Because that's how my mom used to respond, like, you know what I mean? Don't have sex, don't do drugs, right? She instilled fear in me, which, thankfully it worked. But for me, I know that I want Noah to feel comfortable one day, right? And feel safe. Not have to look at me as an authoritarian, but more as a person where, like, man, I gotta talk to my dad about this because this is crazy.
And that's a balance. I remember when I was working, when I worked on campus as a campus police officer, and obviously without getting into a lot of specifics, like you would, place, students into protective custody for alcohol intoxication, and a lot of them didn't want to call their parents. And the first thing coming up is that I don't want to disappoint my parents.
Yeah.
Particularly, I don't want to disappoint my father. Call your father. I can't tell my father. Can't tell my father. Call your father. Like, this is gonna go away. But no, I don't want to call my father. They were okay with calling mom. They did not want to call dad.
But mom probably was more like the friend.
No, because mom comes from an emotional standpoint. Us men, we have this traditional thinking of we gotta be hard, we gotta.
That's my
right?
first mentality.
But-
That's legit. My first mentality is
But-
let's go.
When my mom told me, I never did it because I got whooped enough to know to not say anything. But my mom used to say, if you're going out and you're gonna be drinking, I don't care what it is. Call me if you need me, right? She created that line of communication, right? So I mean, I never did that, but creating that line of communication, and instead of coming off judgment and you're wrong, it's more like, all right, man, you just got arrested for drinking. You know what I mean? You know, like, just for me, it's all about the communication part. Walking them through that, allowing them to recognize what they did wrong, and understanding, because if we're talking about windows of learning, where we're coming from a psychological standpoint, in that third window of learning, when they're teens, they learn best by knowing their consequences versus what they want to choose to do. And you gotta let them choose sometimes.
And that comes to the emotional anchor, right?
Right.
How do you
Absolutely.
how do you balance that emotion? Because again, I know the way I come across. You know, and then it's like, okay, let's figure out what happened. The emotions is because the protector, the provider, you know, I gotta realize I gotta keep a stern look and stern, you know, conversation to make sure that things are going the way that they should go. So for me, the emotional anchor, I say, I think it's tough for me to do that. And by nature, people that have been around me long enough know that these is a good-hearted dude. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes too good-hearted dude. I wear my heart on my sleeve for the most part, you know? But it's tough for me to say that, to be that emotional anchor. You know what I'm saying? It's tough. It is tough. I don't know how to do that. I really don't. I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, we talked about. I feel an emotional anchor piece has a lot to do with the vulnerability, right? Like and what you just said is, you know, what I have struggled with, you know, as a dad as well, coming from, you know, and we've said this a lot, and I've said this a lot, you know. 22 years military was my father, and that's like there was no back talk, there was no questioning, there was no any of that, right? And that worked. And you know, like I remember like the direct conversation of, okay, I know this works, of being the authoritative father figure, right?
You saw the outcome of it,
right?
Yourself.
Like, yeah. So how do you get away from that and open yourself up?
The ace works.
And so and so it's like it's been, that has been sort of my process as a dad, you know, since Brooklyn was born, is how do I open up, and how do I be that emotional support that a kid needs, boy, girl, it doesn't matter, you know. It's about their developmental stage and what they just need from their parents. And so for me, what helped was, oh wow, this feels good to talk about my feelings and not have this like huge burden. So there's that, you know, positive outcome. But also just looking at it like, you know, just for me breaking it down black and white. Okay, a child, not a boy or a girl, a child needs X. Can I provide X? Yeah, I can. Let me provide X. Right, and so when I've combined those, it made for that that emotional piece easier for me. It's still tough, right? It's still really hard, and that sort of goes into like the friend piece, you know, with that anchor. My instinct is to say no because I said so. Go away, right? That's my instinct. But I know that's not going to help the situation. It's going to perpetuate, you know, everything. It's the kids want to know why. I wanted to know why. I never got the answer why, right? But that's sort of like the changing of the guard, the changing of the times. Like kids, and it's like it makes sense. Like they're still humans. They still want to know why we're doing this as a parent. And so now it takes more from us as parents not to lose our bleep and just, give them the reason why. But I think you put all of those things together and it just sort of allows for you to be that friend that they're looking for. I see emotional anchor and I equate that to friend because it's based in conversation. Boundaries are huge, right? That is, when I see the actual term friend, that's the only differentiator for me is boundaries. I am not your friend. I am your father. I'm here to keep you safe, keep you loved, keep you sheltered, keep you smart, like all of those things. But so those are only broken out when they've crossed the boundary. Other than that, it's the coolest feeling when Brooke is like, hey, you want to go shoot some hoops? Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
1,000 times out of 100, yes. Like, let's go do that. Oh, and by the way, talking to anybody? Right? Dad! Like, just being silly and like stuff like that. But that is an emotional anchor, in my opinion.
How much of our own triggers, our own raw emotions from our childhood comes out when we're trying to be the emotional anchor?
May I touch on that?
Yeah.
Man, this is my alley, man. I love discussing this because a lot of people deny it and don't want to see it. I always like to say a lot of people are scared of themselves, subconsciously. So what I mean by that is this. Our first window of learning, 0 to 7. That's our foundation. That's how we saw mom and dad communicate. Our whole entire environment, we're a sponge, right? That's what they say, babies are sponges, right? That laid the foundation of who we are as people. Now, as adults, all of that still is there, right? In our subconscious. And we might do things we don't notice that our kids are seeing and following and doing, different things like that. So, to branch off to what you were saying, although you were raised in a different household, you kept an open mind to answer the whys, right? Where that might have not been allowed in your household when you were growing up as a kid. But you allowed growth. You ever hear that saying when they're like, oh, I want my kids to be better than who I am?
Yeah.
I say that shit all the time.
But here's the thing. Most people don't recognize that in order for your kids to be better than who you are, you have to continue on this journey of growth. You can only teach your kids what you know. And if you have stopped here and have only allowed yourself to experience this and know this, that's what you can teach them.
But some people don't, this is where it gets even deeper. Some people don't know they stopped here.
That's a really good
Well,
point.
The trauma that they
really
went
good
through,
Absolutely.
the experience they went through, they don't know that they're running in place.
Yeah.
But that's part of that growth part, because that's where self-awareness comes into play, right? I was raised by, my mom had me at 16. I didn't know my dad till I was 18. My mom, I had all these statistics already put on me as a young person of color growing up, right? Statistically, I was supposed to have a kid at a young age. Statistically, I was supposed to be in and out of jail, just like my dad, right? But having a level of self-awareness and accountability in your growth, knowing this was how I was raised, but this is not what I want for my kids. So now it's getting uncomfortable and getting outside of your comfortability and going through that process of unlearning and relearning the habits needed to have those conversations with your kid about, and they ask why, and you're a little bit more open-minded to it, and because you want to open that line of communication. So here's the thing. Most people are uncomfortable with getting out of their comfort zone because it's different. It's not what they knew growing up. Right? If we try anything new, it's uncomfortable. It's jittery. It's
See, that's where for myself, I embraced being outside my comfort zone.
That's when you grow.
I embraced
absolutely,
I embraced it.
absolutely. But being aware of your traumas and of your behaviors and recognizing that, pinpointing that, and saying, look, you know what? I could have handled that a little bit differently. Maybe I could try this next time. Right? It's going through that journey to continue to grow and become a better father, a man, a husband, right? A provider, a protector, right? It's that constant journey of growth. And not knowing of if you're here or not is not an excuse to not grow. Because at the end of the day, the reality is reality. You can only teach your kids what you know. And if you don't invest in yourself and try to learn to be better, and oh, I went through this situation with my daughter and it just wasn't, I think I could have done better. It's taking that accountability on that journey of growth.
I was listening to something Kevin Hart said a long time ago. He said, at the end of the day, the sun's gonna come up, the sun's gonna set. It's gonna happen. You can be sad, you can be sorry, but at the end of the day, the sun's gonna come up. So whatever it is, you gotta fix it. You gotta keep going.
Right.
But the way he said it, it really hit me.
Yeah.
You know, but that emotional piece is huge, because I think somebody said earlier, like that can set a kid on a good path, set it on a bad path, right from the jump when you wake up in the morning. You know, I was reading something the other day talking about emotional intelligence for African American boys. You know what I'm saying? And what happens in the household will dictate what's going to happen to that kid at school. You know, I don't think people talk enough about emotional intelligence and how that can derail us.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Generational trauma.
Yeah.
Generational trauma.
Yeah.
The trauma that is coming from our parents in a household as a young kid, right? Just think about some of the unknown traumas or lack of self-awareness in certain areas of our own lives now that is being shown to our kids now. Right? So that's why that constant journey of growth for me is so important, because I need to continue to be better and improve so that my son can also see that and be invested in continuing to grow, understanding that it's not about perfection, it's about progress. That was one of our first affirmations when we were younger, which was, well, with Noah, was there's no such thing as perfection, but there's always progress. So at the end of the day, we can only do the best of what we know. But if we're not continuing to educate ourselves like what we're doing now, that holds us pretty stagnant.
So we get to the idea of dealing with our own traumas, having a conversation with our love, you know, with our kids. Now we get to the last stage of one of the roles of father. The last role is being a celebrant, celebrating our kids. The way I look at it, you know, what's your role in how you celebrate your kids? Because I know for myself, I'm always like, and it's always happens around report cards. Report card comes home, it's good. You know, it's for my daughters, it's a kiss on the cheek, good job, thank you. For my son, it's like, hey, good job, let's keep this up. And it's just, I try to be very routine with just saying, hey, good job, I love you. But it's still hard for me, I talk about the emotional part, it's still hard for me to open up like that with them.
Why do you think that's hard for you?
Generational stuff, right? You know, a long time ago, you know, when I saw domestic violence in my household with something my mother went through, and I used to see the cycle of domestic violence. That's why I have a different understanding, a different understanding of like that cycle for females, because I saw it growing up. And I remember Trent moving from my mom's house down south to my grandmother's with my grandparents, and I was missing my mom and missing my dad so much. It was like, you know, I was suicidal. So I went to Lipton Center to see a counselor because of being suicidal. Legit, almost was there a couple times. And I don't know, I just have a vivid memory of like those conversations not going too well. I don't know, those conversations were weird, you know. And ever since then, I've been kind of weighted out about emotions sometimes.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to people? I don't know.
Yeah, I get it.
You know?
The reason why I ask that is because maybe that's the journey. Sometimes our kids give us the opportunity to get out, you know, to step out of it.
Yeah.
It's gonna feel uncomfortable. Like for an example, I'm very uncomfortable emotionally, like crying to be specific. So when Noah cries or he's expressing himself emotionally, it makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right? But I have to recognize, okay, well, this is a moment where he's vulnerable. If I'm shutting that down, why are you crying? Sit up, right? I'm shutting that down. I'm not allowing him to be vulnerable. He's going to feel like, well, being vulnerable is not important. But sometimes our kids puts us in a situation where we need to kind of tap out of that, get uncomfortable. This doesn't feel right, but allowing to go down that journey, because that's how maybe we learn something new or whatever it might be. So that's what I'm saying. It's that self-awareness of when it comes to that emotional part. It's being a little more minded and just allowing growth.
So I know, like, I'm quick to celebrate my kids. I love that. You know what I'm saying? But it hasn't happened yet. But I don't know how I'm going to respond to the conversation with Dad. Let's talk about X. Let's talk about, especially the emotional piece. I'm not sure how I'm going to respond. I'm saying let's talk about this person that I like, or this person.
Okay.
Or let's talk about these feelings that I have.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how I'm going to respond to that.
Different scenario on what you guys are talking about, celebrating. I was lost somewhere. Talking about celebrating. So celebrating being a parent. I'll be real quick. But to go back to you, Derek, when you were talking about you and your wife just looking for that time for that, I just need that alone time. I got no kids in my house. I'm still looking for that alone time. Just to let you know what you're looking forward to, all right? Celebrating your kids. So my son got his own, he's got his wife, and 2 beautiful kids, grandkids, he's doing well. My daughter just bought her first house, she's working on her second kid in January. My youngest daughter's going to UMass Boston. And I got 4 grandkids, gonna be 4 grandkids. If that ain't nothing to celebrate
That's
about being
celebration,
a
right?
mom.
Absolutely.
So how do you express that to them?
There's no expression for it.
It's just a proudness, it's
not.
organic.
My wife and I look at us, and I think the gender reveal, we looked at each other and said, damn, we did a damn good job raising these kids. And we were celebrating each other.
Right.
Through whatever grit and pain and hurrahs and high fives and whatever else that we went through. We celebrated raising our kids well.
How do you show your kids, how do you celebrate them, to them?
They celebrate
Like
us.
to their face.
They celebrate us now. It changed. They're telling their kids how great their grandparents are. They're celebrating us. Mommy and Daddy want to take the kids for a while. Mommy and Daddy want to get you out to eat. So it reverses. We celebrated us raising them, and when they come, and now they call us, and they still tell us, we love you. We love you too, baby. So the celebrating comes. The celebrating at the time for a kid winning a trophy, celebrate them, you put them on mantle and tell your friends how well your kids did, you celebrate that as they grow up. But the celebration don't start until they out of the house. And you can realize what you did, and you won't realize what you did as a parent until you look back and see what your kids are right now.
So real quick, how I celebrate mine is I tell him that, like my son, I tell him he's the best son out of all the sons in the universe.
Yeah.
That's disrespect to everybody's son. Just kidding. When I tell him, he's like, yo, you the best boy that ever walked this planet. You know what I mean? I tell my daughter the same thing. I remind them all the time that they're cool. I remind them that like there's nothing like them. When my son goes to sleep, I tell him, I hope you have the best sleep you ever had. I hope you had the best sleep that anybody ever had. I hope you had the best sleep ever. You know what I'm saying? And when he wakes up, I ask him, did you have a good sleep? Yeah, good. I hope you had the best sleep. You know what I mean? And I'm always uplifting them.
I can learn from that.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I can
I'm
learn from
always uplifting them. Because my mother used to always tell me how stupid I was. It didn't matter what I did. I could have did nothing. I remember one time walking, carrying some groceries, and the person put like, remember those 3 liter bottles from Market Basket? They put like 2 of them in a single bag, so I'm walking upstairs and my mother turns around, you so fucking stupid like your father, and I'm like I made the bag.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I just always remind my kids how cool they are.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? How awesome you are. You're the best. I don't care what nobody says, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's every day. Almost to the point where, I'll tell my son like, you're the coolest kid on the earth, right? And he'd be like, yeah. Well, how you know? Because you tell me all the time. Cool. You know what I'm saying? And then there was one time where he actually goes through the house now and tells everybody in the house like, hey, I'm gonna be better than Dad one day. Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna be richer than Dad too. You sure are. You and Sissy. You know what I mean? And that just comes from all of those points right there. But the most important point is just showing.
Yeah.
Just showing.
We got another couple minutes until the video runs out because it's only at 57:34. You've got 2 more minutes.
But you celebrate your kids. You let them know every day. It's almost like pretending like they got amnesia and you gotta tell them every 5 minutes, yo, you the best one I ever seen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You the best one. Sometimes I find myself slipping and I tell my son like, yo, you, best kid ever. And I look at my daughter, she looking at me, all right.
You were the best boy, you're the best girl.
Yeah, right.
In closing, anybody got anything in closing? We got about a minute.
How do you think?
When I think of celebrating, I think of positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
I think in the beginning, I got into that old habit. Again, that subconscious thing is like you're always being called out for what you're doing wrong, but never recognized for what you're doing right. So making that adjustment earlier on with Noah, and I still miss it sometimes, but making sure I'm being self-aware about recognizing. You used the word small wins earlier. Those small wins, right? You know, he pushed the kid off because he was hanging on him like, hey, you know, good job for protecting yourself. You know, he was in your space and that wasn't okay. So, you know, good job for protecting your space. You know, and you know, I think of just positive reinforcement. When it comes to like sports and stuff, I'm reality with that stuff. I grew up as an athlete, so it's like, oh, you lost. Well, you lost. You know, you know, we got to work harder and we got to find out what our lessons were, and you know, we get better from there. But when I think of celebratory, I think of positive reinforcement. Always taking the time to recognize every small, big, medium, whatever win it is that they have been able to accomplish, because you know, sometimes we can get too caught up in recognizing for everything they do wrong. So.
Everybody, it's always a privilege being with you all today. Hopefully you all took some form of a nugget that we talked about as it relates to the 7 roles of fatherhood. We'll see you again very soon with episode number 7. Thank you all. Enjoy.